Committee meeting Thursday, March 16th, 2023, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. I always want to say amen.
Okay, adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Ross.
Only that when we get to 3 budget review, instead of jumping right into expenses and revenues, what we'll do is we'll look to Paula to answer the questions, because she's got all the answers from last meeting, and we'll just get that out of the way before we move on with new business.
Okay.
Would you like me to take it from here?
Comments from the
Oh,
public?
sorry about that.
Any comments from the public? No? Okay, then yes, we'll go on to number 3, and it's all yours.
All right, so I want to start our meeting, as we have all our other budget meetings, by simply looking at the STRIVE statements, and maybe we'll do quick introductions in case we have anybody new at the table. Our 6 STRIVE statements for our work this evening are: we will strive to work together as a community that values the education our children receive at AES. We'll strive to be fully, quote, present at the meetings by becoming familiar with the materials and by being attentive. We'll strive to invite and welcome the contributions of every member and listen to each other. We'll strive to be involved to our individual level of comfort. Each of us is responsible for airing disagreements during the meeting rather than carrying those disagreements outside the meeting. We will strive to operate in a collegial and friendly atmosphere, and we will strive to be responsible for examining all points of view. And tonight, when we do introductions, we've had different creative ways. I just think what we'll do is we'll just come up with a word or two or a small sentence on yesterday's storm, okay? And I've started at this end of the table. So Amanda, thank you for volunteering to go first. And we'll go this way. Introduce yourself and then just a few words on the storm yesterday, Amanda.
Storm.
It was just yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
Was it yesterday
No,
before?
before. No,
There you go. See, I got my word. You got your word? All right.
Amanda Cobb, school committee. The storm was great because I couldn't shovel because I pulled a muscle in my back.
Get over it.
That was awesome. I loved it.
CJ Gardner, school committee. It was fine. I worked all day. The kids were playing video games, so they had a great time. My husband was snowblowing.
Ray Lopez, Warrant Finance Committee. Let this one be the last one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amen.
Charlie Heidick, Warrant Finance. Yesterday was sunny.
It
The
was.
storm prior was fun.
Paula Lanting, Finance Director. Tired. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
Margarita Borgel, Warren and Finance. December, January, February, I don't complain. Now I'm over it. I'm over it.
Warren Finance, it was windy and wet, heavy.
Kimberly Stacy Horn, one of your selectwomen. I guess the only one. As far as the snowstorm, it was beautiful. I love snow, but I'm done too.
Leslie Berlin, Wharton Finance. All I have to say is next Monday is the first day of spring.
Amen.
Good reminder.
It's also my birthday.
Dennis Long,
Good reminder on that, too. Yeah.
Dennis
say
Long,
the year
Chairman of the
of
Warrant
our
Finance Committee. As everybody knows, I always have a story about something. And this storm, I saw something that I'd never seen before in my life.
What's that?
Was it the balls?
And I was talking to Robin Hand, and he saw the same thing. What it looked like out on the water, on the ice, was like we had snowballs this big
Yeah.
in the snow. And Robin told me that a guy was telling him they call that snow angels.
Huh?
And it's very rare, but every 100 years or whatever, all the circumstances are just right. And out in front of my place, there was probably at least 100 of these, like they dropped out of the sky.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it before.
Winter tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
So it was just a little story.
Channel 6 News explained it at 4.
They did?
Yeah, they did.
Really?
Yeah, they-
I guess I'll watch the news once in
Did
a
they do a
while.
good job?
Really? Joyce Bakshi, Warrant and Finance. Tuesday, a day to take advantage of, a day for a good book, warm chocolate cake, and a glass of milk.
Maybe
Very
go to
good.
your house next time.
John Ross, Superintendent Principal, Acton School Department, and I'd say my word is a lot for Acton. I travel through 5 towns to get here, and there's more snow here than any of the towns. You go now or north of here and not so much, but I think Acton, it was like bullseye. Very,
That's what
very
the news
interesting.
said.
Yeah,
We were
yeah,
the
it's
bullseye.
noticeable if you travel out of town.
We didn't get lucky.
22 inches.
We are special.
Yeah. As a 22.
22.
I guess my take on the storm was lazy day and thankful to look out the window and see Andy plowing a few times.
Perfect.
Jeanette Burris, and the snow certainly was heavy to shovel, but my girl, that's what I call my tractor, plowed very well. Took me a little longer.
I saw you on it.
Took me a little, like that?
Yeah.
Like my outfit?
Yeah. I suggest you only keep that outfit for plowing, because
That's
people
all I
out on the
use it
street.
for. I never wear it I don't wear it anyplace else.
All right, so now we all know each other, and we know how we felt about Tuesday. What I thought we'd do is we'd move to Paula with the questions you had and the answers that we have for you from last meeting, please.
Okay, the question was what the percentage of change in the new transportation contract for years 2 and 3. Year 2, it's a 8.36% increase, and year 3, it's a 3.47 increase.
3.47, did you say?
And then we had questions on the vans that we have, the mileage. One of the vans has 12,000 miles, the other one has 32,000, and the last one has 13,000. So one definitely has a significant amount more than the other two. We no longer have maintenance agreements with them, so we're gonna be handling that ourselves.
Just a comment on that, which is good, because we put $1,000 per van, or 3,000 aggregate, and perhaps the one with the 32,000 will be the first one that needs some maintenance, so that hopefully will cover everything.
And then we had questions on our copiers. They are rentals. We have 3 color copiers, 2 black and white copiers, and 11 to 12-ish, Mike told me, printers distributed through grades 3 through 8. And the contract covers all supplies, services for all of them, based on the number of pages that we use. And then the last question was our 21-22 unassigned fund balance. Per the audit, it was $1,044,639. And then the last question was, what will this unassigned fund balance be this year? It's really too early to tell. We really we'll know more in June when the school year is done, so it's kind of early to tell what that number will be.
Do you know, though, for the budget for this year that we're living in, was it $296,000?
Yes.
Is that, I got that in my head, is that correct?
Yes.
So just to be clear, that there was $296,000 from unassigned school fund balance in this year's budget. We won't know if we use the whole 296 until we get to the last day of June. We usually have a pretty good idea when we get into late May, June, what that's gonna look like. So whatever your total was, that's in this year's budget. And we'll talk about what we're looking for in this budget we're building when we get to it in just a few minutes.
Plus, we also had $100,000 we took out for
Correct.
capital reserve.
We took $100,000 out to put in for the emergency revenue capital repair, yeah, last year.
So that 200 and some odd thousand you're talking about.
296, yeah.
296.
296
Yeah.
is taken out of this
Right.
1.4 million.
Right.
The unassigned, yes.
Yeah.
And
That's what I thought.
consider it,
So it's
like, think of it as encumbered. It's
No,
part of,
I
it's part of this,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah. Plus another 100,000, Dennis, that was voted and moved from
Yeah.
unassigned to refill our emergency
Yep.
repair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
6,000, thank you.
Okay.
And it's out of that we're turning 200,000 back to the
Correct.
town, correct?
Turning back to the town.
That would, well, it's part of our revenues, right? How did that work out? Was it,
There's two, so it's 296 to offset this year's budget that we're living in. So
Oh,
I call
290
it, 296 is encumbered. So the number that Paula
Okay.
gave you, you need to remove 296,000 for operating this year, an additional 100,000, which was voted on for emergency repairs, because we had drawn down to zero on that.
Okay.
You can do the math on that, and then you're gonna see that 296 is kind of a moving, it will not be more than 296. Could be 290, could be 294, could be 280. I don't know what it's gonna be till we get closer to June. Okay? So thank you, Paula, for answering that.
and can you tell us again what the percentage is that they recommend?
No, well, we have the new policy for, it's 9%. We can keep, I guess that went up because of COVID. So we have a 3-year span where it's 9% right now.
9% that can
Over
be-
your total budget.
Can be retained over the budget?
Yes.
Over your whole budget.
Total budget.
Not
Correct.
just school year.
Right.
For the whole thing.
So for the history on that, it was 3% for years, it went to 5, it's at 9 now. The explanation was COVID, because a lot of schools were in the same position as us, where the wheels of the buses didn't turn for 3 months, and there was a lot that went back. So this adjustment will change. It's my understanding it's gonna go from 9 to 5. You mentioned 3 years, I don't know if that's 3 years at 9, or a 3-year transition back to a lower number.
I believe we're in the middle of the 3 years, so.
Okay,
we
so,
have one more
so,
year.
so we got one more year, then we'll be looking at a cap of 5%.
So it's a transition.
Yeah. And that's not like a local policy, that's a state law in regards to school finance, okay? All right. So the budget expenses, the review of the FY '24 budget expenses, we did that. We've been through every article, and I want you to know that when we first started looking at this, Paula and I got together Friday, and then again Monday, and I went through with Paula, although we looked at everything up, down, and I said to you, just because a cost center might be up 17%, that doesn't mean it's necessarily up 17% until we look at our total revenue to offset that increase, okay? So each cost center was up somewhere. I think maybe one of them was down a little bit, maybe one was flat, without going back and looking at every article. I will let you know that since then, there are some things that I needed to remove, because when I looked at the revenues, the percent overall was pretty high. So Paula and I sharpened our pencil, and we were able to go through, and I'll just give you just an example of some things. Like, for instance, I looked at summer school, it's $3,000, but I left it because we need summer school. We're also applying for a grant for summer school. I don't know if we're gonna get the grant. I think it's risky to take it out and not get the grant, then we don't have summer school. So this is just the process that goes through Mr. Ross's head as to whether this is something I can touch or not. But I'll give you an example. We have an art teacher who's retiring. Well, the art teacher's been here for a long, long time, and then you add the art teacher's insurance into it, and it's, I think, a single, maybe a double, I think it's a single. So when we placehold a new hire, we placehold that hire at bachelor degree plus 15 with 4-year experience. That's kind of the middle of the road. You can hire below that. You don't really want to hire above that. You might find somebody who's an excellent candidate that's above that, but usually that's your placeholder going into the next year. But the other thing is, we have to assign the full family to it, because if we hire somebody who has kids and our current teacher doesn't, and you miss that, you get stuck with a budget that doesn't support that particular department. So we budget for a new employee, the family, and if they don't take the family, then great. But if you don't budget for the family and they have a family, again, you're in a pickle, you're in a tough spot. So there's an adjustment that, just in doing that, looked like we could save ourselves $9,500. So we went back and we made some changes. Couple other things just to give you, like subsecretary. We had subsecretary in there for $2,000, but we never hire a subsecretary. Paula comes over and answers the phone if Amanda's sick, so we cover it within. So I felt pretty comfortable just grabbing for things. There is a position remember, we had ESSER funds, and we hired several positions on that, and we moved many of those positions into this budget. If I didn't move those positions into the budget, we would not have enough teachers for the amount of students we have. So some of them have been adopted in this budget and is off the federal money. I did that last year too. There was somebody who was on federal money that position, it was a 6th grade team, that position doesn't exist anymore. Therefore, that doesn't even show up. So I could anticipate this. You have 2 years of federal money, you have to start weaning away from that, otherwise you get nailed in one budget year. So there's another area that there's a placeholder teacher that's not on this year's budget that was in last year's budget because of the ESSER funding. However, I did keep one. I kept a teacher, and I added that teacher to this budget that was on ESSER funding and brought that teacher over because I think it's needed at a particular place in the school. That being said, overall, I was able to get down, I kind of moved the needle down a little bit to about right around $42,000 worth of savings in what we've already looked at because the number was too high. That being said, why don't we take a look at the revenue, Paula? I didn't get a copy, but did you give it to everybody else?
I got an extra.
Let's look at the revenue so we know what the revenue side looks like, and then we can look at it overall and have a discussion if that's acceptable to the school committee or not. Tonight's the night where the budget is not I hand the budget off to the school committee tonight. I've done, I think, the best I can do, and then it's on you guys and to have the conversation about what we want to do with the budget for next year for the kids at Acton Elementary. So Paul, all right, you want to walk us through the proposed budget revenue and probably the place to look at the most, just like we do in every one, folks. It's left to right. You have the actual from 2 years ago, you have this year's budget, and then you have the proposed and the difference. I usually just kind of hang out in the proposed and difference area, unless somebody else has questions about any other blocks. So if you could walk us through that, please.
Yes, so the first is the EPS subsidy that we receive. This is based on our enrollment in the school, and that is, last year was $3,508,000, and next year will be $3,691,334. That's an increase of $183,077.
Or almost 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second line is the town funding. That is, last year was $1,460,000, and next year will be $1,600,362, with an increase of 9.61%. The next line is our EPS subsidy that the state gives us. Last year was $465,923. Next year will be $470,348, roughly almost 1% higher. And the next line is our unassigned fund balance. This year is $296,636. Next year we're proposing $200,000. That's a decrease, actually, $96,636, roughly 32.5% decrease. It should be.
Should that be a negative
Yes, it
32?
should.
Yeah, because it's brackets before that. Good catch. Yeah.
And the last one is nutrition. This year it's $130,000. Next year we're looking at $150,000, increase of $20,000 or 15.38%.
So your total overall revenue is up, which is good, but expenses are up, and expenses and revenue both going up. The revenue is not commensurate with the expenses, which we can look at next, because if you have that, we can take a look at how this all plays out with an overall. If you have any questions about revenue before we look at that, now would be the time to ask.
Just for clarification, Laura, the explanation for local adjustment contribution is what the state says that we need to raise for money to educate our kids. The second one, additional contribution from the town, is the money above and beyond what we choose to spend on our kids for education.
The EPS formula.
Right.
Yep.
And, well, the state subsidy is state subsidy. But the $200,000 is money that you, like we talked about earlier, that you're going to take out of the unassigned fund balance to offset taxes.
Correct.
And
296 this budget, we're looking at 200 for
Yeah.
next year's budget.
Yeah.
You got it, Dennis, you nailed each one of those.
And with the explanation that you gave prior about the fund balances and stuff, I mean, that all makes sense to me. And before we even go any farther, I said to Joyce last week, I said, I know we don't know what the revenues are yet. I said, but the school has been between 0 and 2% for quite a few years now. And I wouldn't be surprised if the increase was 4 or 5%, considering what we're looking at. And to see you're looking at 4.29%.
Well, that's the increase in revenue.
That's not the increase in the
overall.
overall budget?
Nope, we're gonna look at that next.
That's just revenue.
Okay, so remember, expenses went up and revenues went up, but they didn't go up the same.
Okay.
That gets you to 0.
Well, I'm ahead of myself.
You are, just a little bit, but I do appreciate you mentioning that overall. I've been here 7 years, and you're right, the overall, which we're gonna talk about next, really that number of the $5 million and, you know, between 5 and 6 is what it's been for the 7 years I've been here. And you're right, it's been a half, a 0. I think the most we saw was 4, the lowest we saw was flat.
And I just said that
Yeah,
you
you're right.
can't expect this forever. You know, the cost is the cost, was my statement, so.
Okay, okay, you got another question, Joyce?
Nope.
Nope, okay.
Nope.
Paula, do you want to take a look at the overall now, what it would look like with these revenues versus the expenses that you and I adjusted on Monday? And is that a printout that we have for everybody, or is that a discussion?
No, it's just a discussion.
Okay.
And I guess it's a net change from last year to this year. The overall, last year it was $4,968,257, and this year it's $5,291,696. So it's a net change of 6.51%.
The overall budget is up 6.5%, right to 6.5. We looked at this at 6.7, and we looked at this at 7.3, and we got to 6.5, and 6.5 isn't 7, and 6.5 isn't 6, it's 6.5. So where I come from now on that 6.5% increase overall with revenues and expenses adjusted, one of my placeholder positions I have was to help out the middle school because their numbers are higher, and we have a very, I would just say a very interesting group of 7th graders this year that are 8th graders next year, that are the same group of kids that have been with us for, it'll be, if they went to pre-K, it'll be 10 years by the time they hit 8th grade. And they were the same group that we created a 6th grade team for 2 years ago. Let me see, they're in 7th grade now, so no, they were in the 6th grade team last year. Fortunately, last year I had some ESSER money to offset that 6th grade team, so we were able to give them a 6th grade team last year. Now they're in 7th grade, next year they are our 8th graders. So I have a position that I would very much like, and it's in the 6.5, it's in there, to support the middle school, but I know the middle school's here tonight. And I've talked with a couple of them. I've talked with one of them, and I said, I can do my thing with 6.5%. I feel like I've done what you've asked me to do. I'm giving it to you. And if, you know, you come tonight and you speak with the school committee, at this point, it becomes the school committee's decision. And that's exactly what I said, and that's exactly what I'm saying to you guys. So now would be a great time to actually recognize you, Dave.
Okay.
Okay, for
Yeah.
what we talked about. I think
Sure.
I got it right, so, yeah.
No, I appreciate
Okay.
the time.
Yep.
And, you know, and first of all, I mean, I want to thank John because, I mean, this is something that we've been hashing around, we've been talking about. We have talked about it, I don't know, you know, maybe a month on and off, and honestly trying to wrap our minds around some of it, because some of the dynamics for next year, obviously, are different than dynamics that we've had in the past as well. And, you know, so, first of all, it's been really good talking back and forth about it and trying to brainstorm ideas and so forth. And in the end, you know, John, of course, we're getting down to budget season as we clearly know here. And John, you know, basically he's looking for some sort of a solution, obviously with the superintendent hat on, that would not have an impact on tax, you know, on the tax rate, on the budget. Well, so he proposed some things, and then we look at it, and then back and forth. Make a long story short, you know, I certainly appreciate looking at potentially sliding somebody else up to work in the 6th, 7th, and 8th team. But the numbers in that cohort this year are the greatest numbers that we've had since we've been for the following year, I should say. It is for this year, and for the following year in the 6-8 format, because we've done the 6-8 format on and off. Most of the time here has been a junior high 7th and 8th, but with numbers and this and that, you know, it's necessitated some things. So we're looking at the 6-8 cohort next year having numbers even higher than they are this year. So John was looking at, okay, well, let's slide somebody up to help and essentially make, you know, if you don't know, we're all departmentalized, obviously, to try to give them a flow right into what they would be seeing in high school. You know, you got a science teacher, a language arts teacher, a history teacher, and a math teacher. You know, in that format, see how it would work. Now, obviously, in doing that, it becomes somewhat of a scheduling thing. So this is all kind of come together here right now in the budget season. So we started looking as a cohort, like how can we pull this off, and can we pull it off? Logistically, it's a little difficult. And then we looked at it, and of course, you know, I get your positions. I mean, I was on the Warren Finance Committee for a long time back in the day, and it's not an easy juggling act. I'm also a teacher for 30-something years. I don't know how many years I've been teaching, for God's sake, but for 30-something years. And I also am pretty passionate about, you know, the kids here as well, and them getting the best education they can. So John, this isn't new to John or anybody. I want to just pass these around, and I'll try to be brief, but I think it's really important. There's several there. I don't know if I got enough for everybody or not, but you can pass them down. I don't know if you need one, John. I'll give you.
I'll look with Judy.
I'll keep one, and you can pass those down, and you might have to do some sharing.
No, he did send me an email. I read it the other night, yeah.
So, and that's when John, when we really brought this all together and really did the research on that, that's when John said what he just said here. You know, maybe we need to look at this. Have you kind of show this. So the current budget plan, as John said, that was presented here today, is having an extra in-house teacher come to the 6-8 cohort to provide instruction in addition to the present 6-8 team to teach 83 students, okay? That would be 83 students for this team, okay? So this, when we looked at it, we said, okay, that's a lot more students than we've ever had. Okay, well, let's see how this all breaks down. So we looked at different combinations, and we looked at, honestly, if we're looking at what would the best that we can do under reasonable circumstances, we started hashing around an alternate proposal, which I put here, to hire an extra teacher, along with the one that is in-house, sliding up, to teach 6th grade and go back to the 7th and 8th model. So the current 5th grade class is guaranteed to remain as 2 classes as 6th graders, and have the 7th and 8th split into the 2 classes, dealing with some of the things that John alluded to, and obviously keeping class sizes down. You know, one of the things that has definitely happened over the last several years is class sizes have been creeping up and up and up and up. You know, we still have, like Dennis will remember, I mean, we've had some yo-yo years in the past where you had a small class come through, but you normally had you know, you'd have to break it into a couple classes. Well, then when the bust happened in 2008, our enrollment went down. Well, of course, you know, all based on the real estate market, it seemed. As the real estate market has gone up, our enrollment has surged again. So we're kind of in that tweener time. So we started looking at it. So basically, then the 7th, you'd have 2 6th grade classes, adding 1 teacher, and all that comes with that new teacher, a teacher's salary and a benefit package, you're assuming, worst case, which obviously makes sense. And the 7th and 8th grade teachers would be teaching 56 students, not the 83 students, but more importantly, it would be in a conventional, kind of in the conventional system that we've done in the past with you know, the 4 teachers and so forth, because as we looked at we mapped out, and I'll spare you all of that, because you don't, but you're more than welcome to look at what we mapped out, how the different schedules would work under the present thing that is in the budget right now. And again, it's not a reflection on anybody. John's looking for solutions to a problem, and we started brainstorming it, and it's like, whoa. So we looked at, by going, and this is why, A, B, and C shows why we are kind of looking at the alternative proposal. So in A, you could break this down into three configurations. 2 6th grade classes, 2 7th grade classes, and 2 8th grade classes if you just slid up and made it from a 4-person team to a 5-person team, not hiring anybody. So when we did the mock schedule with this setup, we saw no way to work in any common planning times which has pretty much been the status quo along that the administration has tried to, you know, maintain. There's no room for teacher prep time. There's no common tutorial time for students to access all their teachers. You know, this is a really important time in the junior high. You know, we give homework. However, we also realize things aren't all equal at home. It's not equity in terms of, you know, the homework. And some of the homework, you know, what they're doing algebra and they're doing higher level writing. So we have a tutorial period that is the same block for everybody. So the kids can go around to all their teachers and get the help. And it ends up like a class because the kids are coming in where they need the help. They're getting most of their homework done during these tutorial periods, you know, and because they can access all their teachers. In this scenario A, there's no way to do that. So they could have a tutorial time, but they kind of be on their own. They couldn't access all their teachers in the whole scheduling dynamics of it. They might be able to access one of their teachers. The specials, allied arts and so forth, and gym would need to be scattered throughout the schedule, not in a specific block, which then spills over some potential scheduling issues and dynamics beyond what we have here in the middle school. Some teachers would need to teach more classes than others, you know, to balance it off. And this extra teacher sliding up would basically, for lack of a better word, would be teaching a hodgepodge of classes through the day. So the continuity we've had with one teacher teaching all students in the subject area would be gone. There was just no way to work that. Now, to me, who's experienced all this stuff, that last one is really super important, because we have a great advantage here as a small school that we do loop with the kids in at least in 7th and 8th grade, and sometimes in 6th and 7th and 8th grade. That like the kids have always had me for 7th and 8th grade science. Every kid. You know, the continuity of the curriculum, you know, I've been doing it a while, I know what they need to go to high school. The continuity of the instruction that's hard to beat when you can fit in looping, and it's, you know, it's a really good model. We have been able to consistently do that. You know, adding that extra person is awesome. Because it allows you to, you know, get classes, you know, get your classes in and so forth every day. But that person is, in this one way of looking at it, is all over the place. Might be teaching you know, we don't know all the details how it would work. Might be teaching a science class, and might be teaching one of the language arts classes, you know, this and that and the other thing. Now, do other schools do that at times? Yeah, I think they do in bigger schools, but I'm just saying, we've had the luxury of having, and it's a great thing, that continuity of instruction to get them ready for high school. So we looked at that and said, you know, that's not ideal, obviously. So we said, well, what about the scenario of B? 2 6th grades, okay, because the 6th grade is a big class, next year's 6th grade, of 27 kids. 2 7th grade classes and one 8th grade class, okay? So this year's 6th grade, next year's 7th is already 2, okay? And so isn't this year's 7th grade is 1. So that would maintain that. With this scenario, you could retain, when you do all the scheduling, the common planning time and a single specials block, which is excellent. there would be no common tutorial time again, which again, to me, that one drives me nuts. And the extra teacher would still teach a hodgepodge of the classes to make it work. So on paper, the on paper part of it definitely looks better than A, but you still have a couple of significant obstacles. So then we looked at a third way, and you kind of see where it's going. I guess technically, you could do 1 6th grade, 2 7ths, and 2 8th grade, because next year's 8th grade, certainly you can make a major case, as John alluded to, could use that, that instructional, the extra time, with the teachers that splitting them up would provide, because obviously it's pretty basic math, If you got 22, 23 kids in a class, and you're trying to go around and help them in a 50-minute period, you're gonna, in theory, if all things being equal, you're gonna have about 2 minutes with each kid. Now, we know it doesn't always work out like that, and inevitably sometimes, with that number of kids, there's some kids you're not gonna get to. You pick up some of them in the tutorial, a common tutorial, but it certainly is, the larger the class size is, I think the math is pretty simple. So we looked at this scenario. So this scenario takes into account that it would be easier to have the extra person to teach the younger kids. So you take the 6th grade. So you would have the 6th grade as one class. There's less behaviors. That would leave the 4 core teachers to teach the 7th and 8th grade, that are both split up. Now this would disrupt the current schedules and structures the least. You could pretty much have your common planning times, all the stuff that you couldn't have in A, you could have in this last scenario C. But to me, and this is me speaking, the deal breaker is, the big but is, that would create a single self-contained 6th grade of 27 as we know it right now. I mean, this is what numbers that were going off that we know right now, which I'm saying, which is too many kids in a class for proper instruction and safe physical space. Now, I mean, that's a lot of kids in a class. And so.
What's the ideal class size?
What's that?
What's the ideal class size?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of research on that, It's usually somewhere around 15 to 16 to 1 is what you see with the research. They talk about classes of, like super small classes isn't enough interaction into play, in project experiential based stuff. Obviously, the time that the teachers have when you start getting up in the 20s, with kids in a 55 minute class period, it starts becoming prohibitive then. And that's always been, I mean, the beauty of Acton School being the small school, and I understand dynamics change over time, and we've seen those dynamics. But make no mistake about it, Dennis was talking about it, the line has really been held big time over several years here. I don't think it's a coincidence now that might be struggling with it a little bit more as our enrollments, a natural growing pain as our enrollments are going up, So we started looking at it, and it was like a lot of these all three of them have their own pros, I guess, and cons, but the cons seem to outweigh that. So we looked at an alternative proposal, which is, as I have already said, to kind of just bite the bullet and say, if we can get slide a 6th grade teacher up, get another 6th grade teacher hired, then you've got the best of both worlds. You've got your existing structures, which quite frankly have been very successful as the kids have gone to high school, and you've got a class of 27. No chance of them being combined together. You got that because they are apart this year as 5th graders. They are 2 separate classes, and they're they not a huge amount. It's not a question of behaviors. It's just a question of a class of 27. I question as they get older. I mean, we have classes now of 22. We have a class of 22 and a class of 23. And this school was designed I outdate this school, thank you. I was here before this school was here, so I'm aging myself even more. But this was in designed as an elementary school. Those are elementary classrooms. You know, anybody who wants to go, like Miss Scully's especially is, you know, that class, anybody wants to come and peek in at that class when there's 22 7th graders or 23 8th graders in it. It is, even with that number, it's sardines. Feel free to come in because you'll see, you're packed in there. I have a little bit more of a leeway because I've got a science lab, you know, so I've got one of the bigger rooms in the school. But again, I mean, I've made some alteration just because there's too many big numbers to do certain experiments that I've done in the past. So you make adjustments with class size. So our proposal, I mean, I guess it's kind of simple, you know, based on what we did. And again, I want to thank John for, communicating. We communicated about this when we were kind of getting clear what was going on and what John was proposing. And he's been open about communicating, so open that he said, let's communicate here. And so we certainly appreciate that. So we would be, proposing going with that one extra, with the numbers, that one extra higher.
You might be asking yourself, you've got a question, do questions and I can answer. We'll see what the question is, go ahead.
No, simple, you're gonna move up one
Yeah,
and hire someone new.
yeah.
But the one we're moving up, we're actually having to hire new this year because she was here paid for by pandemic funds.
But that
So
person,
that person is our, but that
in the-
person
is
is
But
that-
that person's in the budget
It's already
already.
the one, yes,
So
the one.
So it adds
Right.
only one more. What's your average class size, Dave?
Oh, well, right now, in six through
Yeah,
eight,
Right.
because in 6 through 8 right now this year, we've got 23 8th graders, 22 7th graders, and 34 6th graders that are split. They're split.
That is tough.
They're split. And I'm serious. I mean, come and look at, you have to look in the class. The eye test usually tells things, you know what I mean? And we're more than welcome. Come up, you can spend all day with us, you know? And look in these rooms and you see, I mean, they're big bodies too. I've got some 8th grade, by the time they get to 8th grade, I've got an 8th grader is taller than I am now. I mean, these are big kids by the time. And it's not even so much that, it's the simple thing of the more you regulate your class sizes, the more time the kids get they get quality time with the teacher, plain and simple. We have some wonderful things, that common tutorial, I keep bringing that up, that is so huge here because it's not fair at home. There are some parents that, I mean, they have the ability to be on top of it. They're right in the forefront. There are others that they're working, they're stressed out, they're trying to make ends meet, whatever. They don't feel like they can do it justice. They don't know exactly what we're doing. So that's precisely why we instituted the tutorial time. Okay, so it made it a fair playing field. The kids get a lot over all their tutorials. They get a lot of instruction, and they can go to every one of their teachers. You see what I'm saying? That's the beauty of it. And I mean, again, you come in and see. You watch that tutorial time. The kids it was nonstop today. I mean, nonstop. The whole tutorial. Kids coming in from 6th grade, coming. You know, it really works well. So. It's a long answer, and I'm pretty good at long answers.
It's a very good answer.
I get you, John, yeah. I'm gonna help facilitate questions. I'm gonna go with CJ and work this way. I'll get to you guys. Okay, go ahead. I won't forget.
So your proposal kind of brings it back to what you all did last year, having 6th grade as their own entity?
Yes.
And then
yeah.
7th and 8th just rotating between you, the 4 of you.
Exactly.
And 6th grade kind of tag teams where one will, say, teach science and math and one will teach
Yeah.
language arts and history like last year. Essentially.
I don't know if we've got that far, but yeah, that's how it has been done some in the past
And
as well.
I think I've heard that it worked pretty well last year, right? People who are in the building. I
It
didn't
did,
hear
and
from any
yeah.
parents. I have a
And the
couple of
trick
friends
is
who have
in the-
kids that age, and I didn't
Right.
hear that it wasn't
No.
working.
It did, and that was targeted for a group of kids who weren't ready quite yet for middle schools. Let's just say it that way to that group of kids.
Yeah.
But this next group of fifth graders coming into sixth grade, it's just a different makeup. There's more of them.
Yeah.
The model worked, but the model we chose for last year was for different reasons.
Yeah.
Really didn't have to do with class size, had to do with the kind of learners that they were.
But it
How's
could
that?
it now
I'm
could work
not
for
suggesting
class
that it
sizes as
wouldn't.
well.
No, I think it probably would work just fine.
Right, and that's kind of why, as this class that got split up last year got recombined because of, the numbers and how it all worked this year, it allows them to be back because they are, I would say in the most need of a lot of that intense, attention and time, time with the teacher. Not that they all aren't. I mean, that's the beauty of if you can try to keep them all consistently
And I
lower.
think that's how my middle school in New York worked, was that sixth grade each had a team, and they went back and forth between the two teachers every day, and then seventh and eighth grade rotated through a separate science, math, literature, and social studies teachers. So that's not an uncommon thing for a middle school to do, is to keep sixth grade a little bit bigger so they'd have more than one classroom teacher, but still not fully roaming the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way my daughter teaches too.
And another thing that you have to take into consideration is you also we have to make sure in this situation the sixth grade doesn't kind of get left by themselves either. They want them to be part of a cohort. In the past at times they have been part of, in certain situations they've been part of our cohort, and part of a middle school cohort. So you don't want to lose that either, that they're just out there by themselves sixth grade. They're part of a cohort.
So we're kind of looking at like what Sanford used to be, with like the 4, 5, 6 at Willard and 7, 8 with junior high.
Charlie, you had your hand up next, going around the table.
Did you have anything? No.
Well, I'm just wondering on Brightspace, isn't that supposed to identify the children that need more teacher time? And what is that percentage at this point in time? I mean, you're talking about an entire class, you're not having enough time to dedicate to each student, but Brightspace, I believe, should be targeting the students that actually need the help.
It's a tool to identify kids that need remediation. It's not the only tool. We have many other ways of looking at kids that need, and our remediation might be tutorial, as Dave mentioned. It might be after-school tutorial. It might be summer school. So we have options for those kids beyond just Brightspace as one of our learning management systems.
And just because Brightspace says that one child needs more help kind of overall, today, this kid might have a question that they don't normally need extra attention, but just today, they're not getting this thing.
Well, I understand that, I was
Yeah,
just
and
looking
I'm not
at
just
it,
looking-
I was just looking at it from the point of, I mean, you're making a point of not having enough time to, the teachers spread themselves out to the class size, but with this program that you have, it identifies students that are doing well, or getting the lesson plan, others that are in the middle, and others that need help. I mean, that's the way it was presented to us.
And that's true. I mean, it's one of the tools, but when you really talk about remediation, one of the best tools we have is the NWEA assessment to see how they're doing compared to their peers and nationally. Teacher testimony, students that are absent, chronically absent, regardless of what you have for technology, how do we get them to come to school for more direct instruction? So you're certainly not off with Brightspace, but I just want to be careful. It's not just Brightspace. There's a lot of things. Yeah.
Ray, I also want to mention too, I don't want it to come across either that time spent is all about spending time with kids that are struggling more. It is, and you kind of alluded to it as well. There may be other time. You've got to answer questions and help all the kids. I mean, and you're right. There are some times when you're really working intensely here, but you know what? Today with some of my top flight students were in science. We're in my class, in my tutorial, asking questions that they didn't get answers to. you know, and they want it because they wanted to get their work done and all that. So it's every kid is going to have questions and need help. You know, I've across the board. You know, sometimes you know, you only have so much time. Sometimes you get to the kids that need more help more. Sometimes you don't. Because you're stuck with kids that still are looking for help. They may not maybe need it as much, I guess, depending on your definition of need, but they're coming for the help. So it isn't just, you know, in that way. And when you mentioned about Sanford, remember they used to call them communities. We're like a mini community. We're like one community out of how many different communities that Sanford have. You know what I mean? So Acton is like one community that they call that Sanford. What you were alluding to.
I'm going to try to facilitate who had questions. Charlie, I think you were next.
A slew of questions.
Okay.
Not being familiar with the current school systems and instruction models, because they've changed a lot in 40, 50 years. What is tutorial time? Is this a separate class session, like what I would have called 50 years ago?
Study hall?
Study hall, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it is an extra block where, we're not giving them any new instruction. You know, so technically you could call it a study hall because they're not getting any new instruction. We're helping, but everybody has the study hall, let's use that term, the study hall together so they can access the help to work on the homework that they have.
It's like study hall and office hours at the same time.
Yeah, so this is just one facilitator in a room with X number of students answering a hodgepodge of questions.
But it could fluctuate, like Tracy might have more because there's way more each. You just gave them a heavy ELA assignment and they need to get their essay done, and it's just that time of year.
It's all the teachers in
All
their
of them.
rooms. All the teachers in their
They're
rooms.
all available.
They're all available.
That's what I was wondering, whether it was just one facilitator or whether it's
They can go to anybody that they
Exactly.
need for the extra help.
That is such an advantage. I mean, think about it. Here I am today. I'm the science teacher, so I need some help with the science. But you know what? I also had trouble with my math, so I'm going to go over to the math teacher and get some help there. You know, they've got access.
Now, is this some type of standard period during the day, 15 minutes or whatever?
It's the same period every day.
End of the day.
It's at the end of the day.
And it's at the end of the day, it's at the that's another thing with these models. It would have to, as I said, it would have to have been scattered all over the place.
Yep.
You know, I sometimes think, you know, remember if any of you had that first or second period study hall in school, you know, that second period study hall is like useless.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're getting the instruction, and if we're over, we sometimes have the ed techs come in if we're super busy too, here and there as needed, so, in that tutorial.
Well, I don't know, some of us delinquent students, we used to use that early study period to do the homework that was due.
Right. Okay, I got you pegged. What was
Not always, but sometimes, you know?
Thinking the same place.
You had
That'll sort of
another
optimize your time. Next question was, you're talking 6th, 7th, and 8th, that's about 60% of your total school population for K through 8. Have you worked any of these models for subsequent years, what the impact will be having one extra teacher floating through several different subjects?
Not me, no.
So what I'm asking, okay, you do this year.
Yeah.
What will be the impact in following years?
Oh, I gotcha.
To see whether or not this is actually the most efficient way to do it.
Well, I mean, see, this is a great question because, like I said, believe it or not, back in the last boom, we had over 300 kids in this school. And, and you still, we were such a small school, every once in a while you'd still have a class or two that would come through that was significantly smaller than the other. And we had some that, man, we were sweating, we were gonna have to bust into 3 different sections of them instead of 2, okay? When we had that type of enrollment, we bit the bullet and we just said, look, we're just going to go 2 of everything. And some years you might end up with a lot less kids. However, for that one-time blip, it's not worth it in displacing the structures and, you know, moving people here, moving people there and all that. So then enrollment went down, it wasn't an issue. Now enrollment's been going up, you know, and you've still, we're not up to that 300 yet. You've still got that potential for, and I don't know, that's kind of beyond, I guess, beyond where I'm at as far as my pay grade, but, you know, like next year, for instance, like the following year, if you look out, I'm going off the cuff here, looking at like next year's third grade, for instance, next year's fourth grade, for instance, excuse me, fifth grade has 21. Next year's fifth grade has 21. Next year, if everything, yeah, of course, this is all
it's
things
magic
unique.
ball.
The next year's third grade has 22. So they're, right now, you know, again, all of, what's interesting, every single class this year has in the 20s all the way through, except sixth grade has 34, okay? That's the first time in quite some time, you know, where we've seen that everything's back up in the 20s again. And again, there are some of those that are split. I mean, John, that's, you know, I'm just a 6th, 7th, 8th grade science teacher, but.
So then teachers, see, I'm trying to learn this, or is there a particular certification for different subjects?
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to figure, you know,
I can help
what's
you
the
with that.
best way to actually, because you don't want to hire someone.
Right.
And all of a sudden, 2 years later, you're canning them because you don't have a need for them. That's not fair to the teacher, and it's not fair to the students.
I lived through that here, so the
not
best
marketing
certification is K through 8.
Okay.
You can get, there is K through 8 certification, and for a school this size, it's the K through 8 certification that works, because you can teach anything here
Well,
except for pre-K.
that's what you typically hire?
If I can find them, yes.
What are the other certifications?
You can do K through 3, and then you can get, we actually had for some time, like secondary, which is really 7 through 12, and you can get a waiver for me to teach 6. So I could hire a high school teacher to teach middle school, but that person's not very portable other than 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Sure.
So K through 8 is the certification that works best in a school this size, because you can go anywhere.
Because you had mentioned, you know, on one of your discussions there about language arts. I know myself, I think I'd be challenged to try to teach Spanish and French and then do a math class or a science class.
Yeah,
I don't know what you
Yeah,
have.
so language
Language
arts
We don't
is,
have, we don't have foreign language.
by the
Okay.
time you get to junior high,
It's
you know,
English
language arts is reading
writing.
and it's writing. They're two, you know, in the lower, levels, you know, you've got kind of like your reading class, you got your writing class, sometimes, you know, the language arts teacher is reading and writing together in the junior high level.
So there's not foreign language.
There's no foreign language?
No,
in
we
it?
used to have foreign language here for many years, and it was we had one language, it was Spanish, and it was a wonderful program, but as, you
I mean,
know,
that's
it
the time to
eventually
teach
got
it is when
voted
they're
out.
young.
We moved over to Duolingo, which was more of a technology-based
Yeah.
platform.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
You know-
which is
you
many
know-
languages. That was the one thing we did get out of it.
Foreign language is not even required as a graduation requirement in high school now, Sanford High School.
Yeah, and we're
It's-
suffering globally because of that.
It's recommended, obviously, if you're going college bound, things like that, but, so you bring up a good point, you know, kind of this yo-yoing, you know, one time a teacher's gotta move here, gotta move there, maybe a teacher's getting axed, because there's not a need in this particular area. We're reaching, as you all know, a crossroads of, we're no different. We can't, the pool of teachers is small, just like it is every other profession out there. You can't find people who want to do it. We have to market ourselves more as, you know, in teaching. So, that's not a great marketing tool, you know, that lack of stability.
Just for those of you in the room, I gotta say, this is the first time I've ever seen Dave Cody explain what Tracy Scully teaches, and I think it's beautiful. Other than that, Charlie, I gotta move around to some other ones. We
Sounds
good?
good.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that. Leslie and then Amanda, please. Go
All right,
ahead.
yeah, I understand your scenarios, but I think with all of the words, what's gotten lost is what you're actually asking for. So let me see if I understand what's happening with the
Please.
budget, because let's bring this back to the budget.
Good.
Exactly.
We had a teacher that was being paid by federal.
Right.
That is in the budget.
This budget I propose.
Right.
Correct.
So the teacher that Dave is talking about is in addition
Correct.
to the budget.
That is correct,
Right.
Leslie.
That was the
Correct.
one piece I wasn't getting.
Correct.
That. All right, so,
So this would be an
Right.
additional teacher to what we've had in all the budgets that sessions that we've gone over.
right.
This is new
So,
information
where
tonight.
would that be put in the budget you're
Yes,
proposing?
and I have a number
So-
for that.
Okay.
I have
Right.
that ready tonight if you wanted to know what it was.
So, wouldn't that be important for us to have it if we're voting on this
Yeah, I was waiting for
tonight?
somebody to ask. Yeah. I was going to give it to you, and then I realized there was a lot of questions. You want to know what it is? So I
Yeah.
use the same placeholder value of a teacher, right? This person we don't know, at the bachelor's plus 15 with full medical insurance, and it brings us up to 8.2, it's 19, right? 8.19?
8.14.
Oh, it's 8.14, so call it, we're roughly, I'm coming in at a 6.5% overall.
Uh-huh.
Add a teacher, it brings you up to 8.14.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because really, basically, that's the bottom
That's the
line. I
bottom
mean,
line.
and I
That-
understand
that's what I thought.
exactly why
Yeah.
you're proposing that, but, I mean,
Oh,
you know.
I was in your shoes, I was on the finance committee.
So it's the
Yeah.
5 or
No.
6.15?
Oh, when you add in the.
Was Amanda, I can move to, was that your question too?
It was 6.5 without the teacher,
what was
now
the
it's
salary?
8.14.
What was the salary?
That one.
We could look that up, it's a placeholder salary and benefits. The question was, what is the salary of the bachelor's plus 15
Right.
with the
all-
full family insurance?
It's $82,000.
With the benefits?
With everything.
Somebody asked.
82,000.
So that's the monetary addition, which represents the increase from 6.5 to 8.14. Amanda, was your question about the increase or not?
It was more of a commentary thing
Okay.
that, like, in the past, I know you've brought the classes to us and said we have, 20, 22, 23, whatever.
Mhm.
And it hasn't, it's mostly been, you've been able to say, we have X number of teachers and we have X number of kids.
Correct.
And here's where they're sitting.
Correct.
And this is what's best for them. And it's always worked out good.
Right, and in this case, I said to this middle school team, I can give you I can make this work at 6.5. None of us had a solution to how a fifth person would actually work wonderfully for the situation. You know, the extra one person that I felt physically responsible to be able to do that, but it
So
doesn't
if you-
work out as the scenarios have been listed.
If, instead of the fifth that's already in the budget, if a sixth, well, another teacher was added, so there's 6 in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade
Correct,
group.
yeah.
That can be scheduled better, perhaps, than 5?
That's exactly
That's
where
what
they were
they're-
coming from.
that's
At
what
5, it was kind of like a thank you for the resource, but we can't make it work with these scenarios that Dave talked about.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I could go with you guys, was that one.
And I could certainly at another time, like, we could show you the actual schedules. I mean, this was all,
That,
you see what I'm saying?
yeah, that is like one of those, I think the school board doesn't get involved as much on
Right,
how the
right,
schedule
right,
works.
right.
But I know we've been told in the past, like, I think it's the 6th, which grade currently has 30-something kids in it, 6th?
The 6th grade this
Fifth-
year.
Yeah.
sixth grade,
The 5th grade this year with
34.
2 classes, right?
Has
That's
four. And
they're
that
going
has
into the
34.
sixth
They're
grade.
split.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how many are in 5th grade currently?
5th grade?
In 5th grade?
33.
Next year's.
27 in 5th grade?
Yeah, and
Oh, 27.
A lot
That's
of
next
times-
year's 6, yeah,
Yeah.
we always look a year
Sure,
ahead.
yeah.
a lot of times that 27 gets split into 2 groups.
That's what they're
They are,
suggesting.
so-
They are in
Yeah.
5th.
Okay,
That's what
all right.
They are in,
Yeah.
That's what
Sandra
we're-
has a teaching partner,
Yeah.
5th grade split.
It's kind of twofold, like you said, it's lowering the, student-teacher ratio in 7-8 and getting that,
Yeah.
keeping that 6th grade, which is already, this year's 5th grade is to keeping it that way.
Yeah. I feel like our budget increase has finally hit, that we've held steady for so long, but also at the same time, it hit with a, hey, one more teacher would be really great for the kids. So it just inches it up that little bit more.
So then that would kick the bottom line to 5.3 million.
Yeah.
I had, so with Paula and I, we had warrants built around the 6.5 increase, and I said, with the technology we have, depending on where you folks go, we could make the change in the warrant tonight if we had to. I don't know the answer to exactly your question, Ray, though, on what that bumps it up. We gave you the monetary value, so yeah, if you added the cost of the teacher, the way I described it to that bottom line, I'm sure your number's right.
Yep.
I didn't do that, I didn't look at the monetary, I looked at the percentage only.
It would be at, what we said,
I'll get you down.
82,000 roughly?
82,
It'd be
Yeah.
5,373,696, give or take a little bit.
Dennis, I'm facilitating, I'll call on you, because I saw you raise your hand.
First, I gotta say, I miss the days that David and I would sit at the table arguing with each other on the warrant finance committee. Second is, I've seen, obviously, as much as anybody, the changes in this school. When I went to school here, the principal was also teaching 5th and 6th grade, okay? So I've seen changes over the years in how the school is operated extremely. What David is saying, and I assume the rest of the teachers are saying, right now, I'm not an expert, but we have a perfect scenario the way we are teaching our kids in this school, okay? However they're setting it up, and it's not my place to tell them how to set it up, but from my personal experience, kids, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever the teachers are proposing is going to be in the best interest of the kids. And if it costs 50,000 more, 100,000 more, or 200,000 more. I know as a chairman of the Warrant Finance Committee, I also am supposed to be conservative, but reality is, the inflation rate this last year was around 9%. Okay, the Fed's put out there. The school's been very conservative, and it's your responsibility and mine to make sure that what we're giving is what is in the best interest of all the children. And Dave's right, those rooms down there, they were built for the maximum of 25 kids. That's the size of them. It's just a fact. And when you put 26, 27, 28 kids in those rooms, it's not a good learning environment. It's just not. And we've made the choice over the years to downsize our classes as much as we can, to keep that one-on-one thing as much as we can with the teaching staff. And I encourage the school board, and I know myself personally, it is what it is. And I think we really ought to do what the teachers think is going to work best for all the kids.
I would not argue with that aspect, Dennis, but you did mention the inflation rate. The inflation rate does not only hit the school or the town's budget, it also hits the people that have to pay the taxes for all this to happen.
I appreciate
Okay.
that, Ray, but they have held the line for so long.
And I'm not arguing that
How
point.
long can they hold the line?
I'm not arguing that point. I believe that would be a help to the teachers. I mean, you spoke last year on the same subject matter, Dave, I believe, wasn't it? At our last budget meeting?
This
I haven't come out of the weeds in a long time, Brad. He's been pretty long, long time.
I just told you I missed it.
Yeah, but I think you were talking about as far as needing help, as far as teaching.
No.
I remember.
I haven't,
No,
honestly,
no,
this is,
that was
this,
Mark.
I mean, this is what I'm passionate about, and I haven't been out, you know, at all, Ray. I haven't been involved in years in that, and I come sometimes for other stuff, but I don't think I attended a budget meeting last
Well,
year.
maybe it was at a school committee meeting,
Yeah.
I don't know, but
No.
I remember the conversation anyway.
This is the first
Either
time.
way,
So,
I'm looking at that increase of the 8.16, I believe, 15.
1-4,
14.
1-4.
Splitting hairs.
I think that you're right, Dennis. I believe that it is in the best interest of the kids. I mean, we're looking at the future of America, and right now, with what's in office right now, is not really looking good. So we need to do something.
Good for you.
Let's not get political.
No, and I'm not, you know, but
Well, it
children
was.
are our future.
Joyce?
One thing that hasn't come up that, I come from a family of teachers. To do this, and with one more teacher, I think what I'm gonna call your last scenario is great with a new teacher. It's something that sort of ties into what Ray just said. This, study hall, whatever you're calling it.
Tutorial, yeah.
This tutorial, it's not only about book learning. It gives the teachers the opportunity to see a child, and they know. You know little Susie that you see every day. You know little Jeff. And all of a sudden, something's wrong. And this kid is hanging out. And you know he knows his science thing, but you know something's wrong. And you're making a connection, a teacher makes a connection with a kid that can stop so many problems from going forward. And what we've been through with pandemic, we have kids now who are getting help sooner rather than later. And kids who are becoming not only educated, but healthy and educated because of the care they're getting in the school. And if that costs 2% on my budget, man, I'm going to give you that 2%, you know? It raises it. Because it's much more, not just the book learning. You don't get a whole human being with just book learning. You have to get a well-rounded human being. And that's when you guys can see it, you know?
You hit it. Your number one inroad, I've been teaching a long time, your number one inroad is the relationship.
Yeah.
Because that opens up, you know, you can do, I mean, that is number one. You can say anything you want about all the things that I teach in science. It doesn't mean a lot if you can't develop that relationship and then you get that working relationship and
We have to. They
they take
good
off.
future kids.
Mary, she said she wants to keep the.
All right, I'm looking for other questions or comments from the table. Charlie?
Do you offer music or anything like that?
Yes, it's one of our specials.
What's that?
Yeah.
That's a completely separate
It's a separate
class period or
class.
something?
Right.
So the specials that the kids rotate through are gym, music, art, STEAM, and
STEAM?
so it's science,
Okay,
technology, engineering, art, math. They have 3D printers. My kids are learning like how to like code, computer coding, and I missed
Library.
Library.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the
Library,
kids in the school rotate through all 5 of those once a week.
Okay.
And they're in the current budget, they've been in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are 5 other
Yeah, it was
areas.
just- it was
Yeah.
just a-
Yeah, good question.
So,
What are you gonna do?
yeah, so we need to bring this back
Okay.
down so we can get moving here on our budget process. What I'm hearing is that, you know, for me, when I see 6.5, I think, oops, boy, that's up from what we've been asking for in the past. And then when I see 8.14, I think, yeah, that's a lot higher than what we've asked for in the past too. But what I'm also hearing is some reasons for the reasons for this, and I think what we're kind of neglecting as we look at these increases is we're neglecting to realize the pandemic and what effect that has had actually on our budget, because we had all this extra money that we could use for like 2 or 3 years, and now that's gone down. Now we're done with that, and some of that money we were able to use. It was all, you know, you could only use it in certain places, but some of it we were able to use to get some more teachers.
Right.
And so we did that, and now that money's gone. So are we going to say, well, our kids are going to have to go without another teacher, or are we going to say we got to bite the bullet and try to, you know, present a budget to the community that we think is in the best interest of the kids? That's why we're on the school committee. We're not on the school committee for the teachers. We're not on the school committee for anybody else. We're on the school committee because we want to do what's best for the kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we need to look at, and I think we as a board need to decide if we want to go forward with this additional teacher and present a budget to the community with an increase of 8.14% rather than the 2 or 3 that we've been presenting in the past few years. So, and I think also, I think inflation does play a part in it too, because it plays a part in our overall budget and the cost of things, you know, everything's gone up. So this is another place that we can do. So I guess I'll ask the board members if you want Paula to change that line in instruction before we look at the articles. If you want her to change that line to add that additional $82,000 into the instructional line before we move on to vote on the articles. So I guess that's what I would like to ask the board.
I would say yes. Add it in. I think our kids deserve it.
I absolutely agree.
I agree, but I don't like to look at, percentages look terrible. You know, I just like to look at the number. What is the number? Forget the percentage. Those things scare everybody.
The school has done a great job over the last several years.
We haven't had
Budget.
the kids on, you know what I mean? Things have changed, the students have changed, you know?
But it's kind of
I will
wrong to say that this 8 point whatever is, really isn't because we're adding a teacher. Most of that increase is because of fixed costs, whether it's
Look at that pie. Look
the
at that
bus,
picture. Look at that pie.
busing or
Contracts,
insurance,
busing.
contracts.
Right.
So adding the teacher is really a very small percentage of what that
Percentage
increase
of it,
is.
that's true.
Make a
Yeah,
recommendation to
go
the
ahead.
chair? My recommendation to the chair is we take a recess, allow Paula and I to do the math and get the new documents printed, which will take a few minutes. You can just chit-chat amongst yourselves, well, if you call us to recess, and then we'll come back and the school committee can formally vote, and you can swap chairs with Dennis with the warrant and finance committee as we plan to do tonight. Does that sound appropriate? And hearing the straw poll from what I've heard from you, we'll go make the adjustments, so.
Okay,
Okay.
so I will look for a motion for the school committee to go into recess
At 6:22?
at 6:22.
I'll second
All
that.
all in favor?
I make the motion?
All right.
Okay, well, I'll call
Because that would show the
the
expense.
meeting of the Acton School Committee back to order after our recess for making adjustments to the warrant, and Paula will explain what the differences are.
Yeah, so regular instruction went from 2,599,370 to the 2,680,512.
Can you say that
Yeah,
first
would
number
you-
again?
Yeah, nice
It
and slow.
was 2,599,370.
Okay, thank you.
And that made a change in the local additional contributions from the town to, it was 1,600,362, and that's 1,681,503.
Okay.
Does anybody need those numbers again?
No.
These are here.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody's got them.
So, just to remind everybody, this doesn't look like the warrants we used to have where they were all written out. You know, you had to read each one and then you had to vote on each one. The articles, since we have been going to the referendum vote for the school department for the last few years, now this gives the cost centers for all of the things, and on the back side of that, when you vote, and when you go to the town to vote, you will just be voting yes and no on a final number for the budget. That's the way it's been the last few years. I also want to emphasize that we will be putting out a budget booklet which totally explains everything that's in each one of these cost centers. So it isn't like somebody can look at it and say, well, what does regular instruction include? The budget will totally explain each one of these cost centers in the budget booklet. And I think we might have had something in there too last year of a comparison from previous years of what we've had maybe the last 5 years, what the last 5 years we've had for a budget. So it would be good to have that again this year, I think, so that people can see that we've really held the line for quite a while. And if we hadn't had in these past 2 or 3 years, if we hadn't had the pandemic money that we had, probably in the last couple of years, our budget would have definitely had to have gone up a little bit because the pandemic money really saved us on a lot of that stuff, so. So what we're gonna do now is, we're going to look at Article 2. We don't need to choose a moderator tonight. We're gonna look at Article 2 and,
To the very bottom.
yep, and at the very bottom, yeah, I've turned it over too quickly. At the bottom, the school committee recommends a yes vote, and the school committee will vote on each one of these, okay? Yeah, we all set on how we're gonna vote and everything? Yep. Okay, so, looking at our warrant, Article 2, shall the town appropriate the sum of $6,193,185 and raise the sum of $5,372,837 for the 23-24 school budget. And it, the town budget submitted in Article 2 totals $6,193,185. It includes locally raised funds in the amount of $5,372,837 to be assessed to the town taxpayers in accordance with state law. The locally raised amount exceeds the state's essential programs and service funding model by $1,681,503. This budget includes these cost centers: regular instruction, special education, career and technical education, other instruction, student and staff support, system administration, school administration, transportation and buses, facilities maintenance, debt service, and all other expenditures. I will look for a motion from the school committee to recommend a yes or no vote on Article 2.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 2 as written.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's a yes vote for the school committee. Any further discussion on it? All in favor? Okay, so turn the page over. Article 3. Shall the school committee be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from the federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated.
Move to accept Article 3 as written.
Oh, second.
Okay. All in favor? All right. Article 4, to see if the town of Acton will appropriate the receipt of certain federal and state grants and carry any previous balances for all grant revenue accounts.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 4 as written.
I'll second that.
All in favor? So moved. Now, I don't know if anybody has any questions before we go on. If not, what we're going to do now is exit our actual school board meeting, and exchange places. Is the Warrant and Finance Committee going to vote tonight on these articles, Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I will look for a motion to exit the school committee meeting at 6:48, and we will be going into a budget workshop with the Warrant and Finance Committee.
So motion by CJ and second by Amanda. Just like before.
All in favor? Okay.
She said the time.
Sure, let's do it.
Do you want to swap places? Do you want to stay where?
No, everybody's
where you
fine,
are.
just where we are.
Jimmy, do you have to adjourn your meeting?
We just.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was
We
so.
just did.
So we've adjourned the school
Pay
committee
attention.
meeting. Sorry. Dave said, John, come here. All right, so here's the thing.
No, it's his fault.
Yeah, it's his fault.
I have to say, John, the other night at a Warrant Finance Committee meeting, I started it as a selectmen's meeting. I said, welcome to the selectmen's meeting. And that's right, you guys voted me out a long time ago. It's really a Warrant Finance meeting.
Okay. Thank you, school.
All right.
We're still all set, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the warrant finance meeting. It is 6:47,
Yeah,
No, that'd be 6:49.
6:49.
Your iPhone.
Thank you for that, Amanda. Before we get into this article, these 4 articles, I have to say that there's 2 reasons why this is shorter than it used to be. One, it's easier. And 2, I talk so darn slow that to go through 10 or 12 articles, it added a half hour to the meeting. So
You're
that.
getting it to now.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I'll take the authority to ask Margarita if she will read these articles, and it'll save us all time.
You got it.
Okay, Margarita?
Article 2, I'm reading these just as is, right?
Yeah.
Just like you guys did? Article 2, shall the town appropriate the sum of $6,193,185 and raise the sum of $5,372,837 for the 2023-2024 school budget. The Town of Acton school budget submitted in Article 2 totals $6,193,185. It includes locally raised funds in the amount of $5,372,837 to be assessed to town taxpayers in accordance with state law. The locally raised amount exceeds the state's essential programs and services funding model by $1,681,503. And this budget includes these cost centers: regular instruction, special education, career and technical education, other instruction, student and staff support, system administration, school administration, transportation and buses, facilities maintenance, debt service and other commitments, and all other expenditures.
I make a motion to accept the Article 2 as written.
Second.
Before we take a vote, without objection, Phil's not here tonight,
No, he's not.
so Charlie, you'll be voting? Okay? Thank you, Charlie.
Whatever.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, just one question. I was expecting a different printout than what you did just on the warrant here. On the school administration, why is the number different than what was on the previously submitted Article 7?
We made adjustments.
I'm sure it's packed in there somewhere else, but I don't see it.
Are those the adjustments that Mr. Roth explained in the very beginning of the meeting?
Perhaps, is the number that you have now lower?
Significantly lower.
Then
That's what I
those are
mean.
the
It's packed
those
somewhere
are the
else.
adjustments that we made, because when we first looked at the budget and the revenues, it was quite high, and I had to
Right.
make some adjustments,
Okay, that's
which I explained
that.
at the beginning, yeah.
And
That's
you
good.
did away with that substitute,
Yeah,
$2,000.
yeah,
The
yeah,
2,000 is gone.
yeah.
Good enough.
Anything else? All in favor? 6-0.
Article 3, shall the school committee be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 3 as written.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you.
And Article 4, to see if the town of Acton will appropriate the receipt of certain federal and state grants and carry any previous balances for all grant revenue accounts.
I make a motion to accept Article 4 as written.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Before we adjourn our warrant finance meeting, there's 2 questions that I would like to bring up. I think it was at the last budget meeting. We talked about replacing the freezer,
Yep.
and there was gonna be probably a special warrant article, maybe.
Maybe so it's not in this budget for sure.
Right.
And we may be looking at our break fix money that we have in capital reserve. That's one avenue that the long-range planning committee looked at last week. After we had a school committee, so that's one, yep.
And the other thing is, I had suggested, when you guys were talking about the roof.
Yep.
To do the whole roof in 1 year.
Yep.
And if that would be a special warrant article.
It's not going to be tonight. I have a few ideas. I need to speak a little more with Andy, who wasn't asked to be here tonight,
yeah.
on some costs. We had 3 good bids on that. And there's a couple of avenues that I have in mind and how we might pay for that. And to kind of fill into where you went, my ideas is to do it all once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that,
And those were capital expenditures, correct? Both of those?
They are. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I just don't, and I know you won't, because that isn't how you operate. I don't want these things to get lost.
We won't forget about them, Dennis. I'm glad you brought those up because they're not in this budget. And at 6.5, coming into this at 6.5, they couldn't be in this budget.
No, those
right?
are separate issues.
I think we'll have another way of taking care of that.
But we have time, because we don't have to do this at the school town meeting, right? We can do it at the June town meeting, these numbers. And we're not scheduled, and who knows if it's gonna make it, but on the schedule that we have, we're not gonna be done making recommendations till April 10th.
Down, okay.
To the town?
Yeah.
To the town.
To the town.
So I just need to say to the school committee, even if it was a week later than that or something, would be more than willing to have a special meeting to
Okay.
make recommendations on those 2 necessities. And I know I do this all the time, and Jeanette really gives me a funny look. I've got to say, what a pleasure it is, and I'm speaking for the whole Warren Finance Committee, because working with the school committee, John Ross, the teachers that come and speak from time to time, you guys have a plan, you can explain everything you do, and quite often telling other departments that they need to look at the school and see how they operate, how they do their budgets, and the personnel policies, and the policies on the way they operate. And it's just a pleasure. The respect that we get from this committee back and forth is what it should be. And I personally have been doing this for a lot of years, and I really appreciate the way it's being done.
Well, we've been doing it, working with the Warren Finance Committee too for a long time, and we appreciate the back and forth questions and the rapport that we have together working as a committee. It's always very respectful on both sides, and you have good questions about what we're doing, and we hope we can come up with the right answers for you. And we do, what we really appreciated, especially this year, was that so many Warren Finance Committee members were present at our budget meetings, because what we've had sometimes in the past, you might have 1 or 2 come, and then you get everything all straightened out, and then the next week, 3 new ones would come, and they don't have a clue what we've talked about last week, so we kind of have to go back. But your representation at our budget meetings has been great, so that any questions that you've had, we've been able to address as we went through the various articles, and that's made it very, very nice for us as a school committee. And we appreciate John, the work he does with the budget, and Paula.
You've done a fantastic
Paula,
job, Stephanie.
fantastic job.
With very little training. Paula's nailed it. Dennis,
I really wasn't your worst nightmare, was I?
No, you weren't.
Dennis, if I could just echo Judy, we will strive to operate in a collegial and friendly atmosphere. This is my 7th budget with you guys, and I really do look forward to it, because I think we have it's math, but we have a good time doing it. I appreciate you all for coming in and helping out the kids of Acton.
Because we come here to be educated.
What, to school, to the school?
2 questions.
The,
Hopefully I won't spoil the theme. Would it be possible to get a revised copy of that Article 7, the administration?
I think we figured out what the issue might be. The Article 7 says school administration on the top. It's actually system administration.
Article
So
8's
Article
school.
8, yeah, is school administration. So if you compare
I don't have that one.
the bottom line of system administration to what's on the paper, it's
go
like
to-
about $9,000 less on the warrant.
No, it's significantly more different.
Yeah.
No, but Article 8 is school
It's just
administration.
the title.
But I don't have 8.
Oh, we'll get it to you.
I can get it.
So
We'll
our-
give you a brand new of everything to bring you up to speed.
That would be great,
No
just in
problem.
case there's other
Yeah.
questions. you
What
know?
we,
Perfect.
what's on the warrant is.
You know, I think
is-
everyone should have it, you know, on the warrant
Yeah,
finance.
we will.
Because if someone asks questions, it would be nice to have the answer.
You bet.
But what's on the warrant is $3,000 less than what's on the actual budget line for Article 8.
Which you don't have Article
I
8.
don't have
He
Article
doesn't
8.
have it, so he can't
Yeah,
compare.
Yeah,
so,
she's just giving you the
but it's
information.
only $3,000 less, and Article 7 that you have is not school administration, it's system administration, and it's about $9,000 less on the warrant.
You don't have that on those.
Okay, because when I compare these 2 sheets, I have an 80K difference, so.
Right, because that's actually
Right.
system administration.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going by what it
Well,
Sure,
says.
yeah.
We'll help you out.
That
We'll
was
get
just a-
everybody a
a
brand new
typo.
package.
And then the last question, oh, you had something else?
Nope, that's it.
And this could just be me being slow, so I'm coming here for an education, is the public hearing for the school
Correct.
is scheduled after the select board signs the warrant,
So we
by a
do,
week or 2.
yep. Those are the dates, and I double checked with town hall to make sure these dates worked, and they work.
Well, my question is, that really doesn't provide an opportunity to modify the warrant. And therefore, my question, tag onto that, is what is the grand purpose of having a hearing, other than letting people vent?
Because the law says, Charlie,
I know you,
That-
the
that
law
you
says
have
you
to.
have to have the hearing, yes,
public hearing.
but it's the order that I'm questioning. If you have the hearing before the
Well-
warrant's signed, you have an opportunity to amend it, change,
Understood.
correct something.
Whether they approve or not.
Because otherwise, you know, I hear this,
I hear
I
what
hear
you're
this
saying,
comment
Jay.
regularly at town meetings. People, you know, someone will say, well, you didn't come to the hearing. Well, even if they come to the hearing, the way this is, in this order, it'll amount to nothing.
So, go on, I'm sorry, go ahead, Judy.
The selectmen will sign our warrant, okay? If there's an article that they aren't happy with, they could put on there that they do not, that they don't recommend that article. They can put that in the warrant, and then at the public hearing, they could explain why. But they always have to sign, this is the school warrant that we present to them with recommendations from the Warrant and Finance Committee, and they look at it and they sign it. And then it's their warrant.
I think the point that's missing is if it's already signed, then it goes to a public hearing, and the public comes up and says, whoa, time out. I need to know, I want some answers on this one, and maybe there could be an adjustment up or down on this number.
But then you would have to go back to the selectmen
And
to
you'd
have
have
a
to-
new warrant
But we
signed.
can-
Right, that's,
Have another
you know, that's
hearing.
why it's backwards.
So we can go ahead anyway. Even
Well-
the selectmen say no, we can go to town and ask for the money anyway. We
Ac-
can vote anyway.
Actually, at this point, we've made our recommendation on the numbers. You guys made your recommendation on the
We're
numbers.
saying, what if the town
But it's
So,
not, it's not
but-
us, it's the town.
It's
No,
That's
I,
what I was
I
saying.
understand that, but if we had a parent sitting in the audience now, they could have participated and said, why this, why not that? Like, we've already got it to where we have it so far, so it would have to be reworked before the selectmen sign it anyways. If, it's the same thing.
No, no, no.
No.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what you're missing is, people may not come here to these meetings, because typically budget meetings can be pretty boring, all right? But if they hear about a public hearing, they might actually show up. And they show up after the warrant's already signed by the selectmen, everything's sealed and ready to go to print. and all of a sudden they voice some concerns or have questions or yay or nay a particular item that could be fudged one way or another because of their concerns, there's no opportunity to actually correct the warrant at that
They
point.
can vote no.
That's kind of extreme.
Charlie,
I know.
last year, no one showed up to the public hearing.
I know.
Nobody.
Just
Nobody.
us.
Literally.
That could be. I'm just saying, I think the order should be swapped to at least provide the public the opportunity. And if they don't take advantage of it, they've had the opportunity, and then they have no room to complain.
How do you
But
change
this is
that?
this is a decision that the selectmen made,
Right. and-
completely on the selectmen.
And I asked you, this has nothing to do with this board, but I asked you in an email regarding the reverse in the order of the town meeting
Yeah.
and the election, which were reversed this year from prior years.
Yeah.
Well, right now on the board of Town Hall, they have the June election, nothing about the school election coming up.
But the-
Both sides of the board.
We'll start advertising.
Jeanette, they also reversed the
Yeah,
election.
Yeah,
yeah.
They're having,
one side of the board says what, and then the other side says.
is the
something.
election after the town meeting?
They're having
Yeah,
the
the
annual
election's after
town
the town
meeting
meeting.
Yeah.
on the 10th, and then they're going to have the election on the 13th.
And the reason for that is, okay, I'm up this year, all right? And say we did it before, we had, and I didn't win. So then I don't come to town meeting, I mean, this is, I've worked all year. And then you have somebody new up there that doesn't know anything. They haven't put any time in to kind of like fight for the budget or anything like that. So that's why we decided to try to do that this year, so that,
But your term isn't up until the end of the fiscal year,
June 30th.
June
Right.
30th. So why wouldn't you go to
Yeah,
the
I mean,
meeting?
you would still be
You'd
sitting
still
in the
be
seat.
seated.
they've never done that, though. They bring the new person in and put them in the seat.
Well,
Well,
they
they-
swear
I
them
mean,
in.
that-
You need to
that's-
be sworn
But
in.
their term doesn't
before-
start then.
Their term
Yeah,
doesn't
but-
start until the 1st of July.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
silly.
but they've always had the new one, I know.
Really? They've always had
But
the.
see-
I doubt it.
They did it with
Maybe
me,
they-
the first year,
But-
I was like, what do you mean I gotta go to town meeting?
Well, you
Well,
can go to town meeting.
Well,
but
no,
you
I
don't
meant they're like, you're gonna
Just
sit up
sit up
here,
on
and I'm
this-
like,
Oh,
well, why do I
really?
have
Is
to do
that
that?
right?
I don't know what I'm
Well,
doing.
something must have been mixed up.
Something was
Because
mixed up,
it's
that's
been,
pretty
they've been doing it for a while like that.
Misconstrued.
Well, someone should have asked that question then in previous years.
Yeah.
I'm just saying right
No,
now.
that's,
I see these two dates reversed as being inappropriate for the town folk, just as I see the town
Yeah.
Well, something to
proper
bring up in our
reversed.
meetings.
That's
you know.
right.
Yeah.
Next
I mean, there's a
selectmen's
sele-
meeting, when are
Charlie-
you guys having the next meeting?
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, so,
There you go.
we can bring it up.
Show up. Selectmen.
I'm
we're
sorry, I'm
always
just
there.
a stickler for details.
That's all right.
We're
You're
always-
right,
actually,
because,
Jeanette, we're always there.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
And ask for a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
7:07, Dennis.
It's unanimous. Now you guys can just keep